Hello, what's up YouTube? This is SilentWorld29 here again, and today I'm going to be showcasing my normal pendulum deck. I've been seeing a lot of normal pendulum deck floating around in DevPro, but I still think my build is still fairly unique, fairly new. So I'm still kind of play testing it. I'm not like really satisfied with the deck just yet. But it does fairly well right now. Does fairly well. The deck is almost entirely made out of TCG cards, so you can actually build a physical copy of this deck, with the exception of 2 extra deck cards, which you can just replace. And they're not even that important since you rarely go to the extra deck unless you're going for game. It's a fun deck. It has a lot of OTK winning streak, but I'd still say it's tier 2 or above because you really need like a certain card. You need to draw a certain card for this deck to actually work. This deck basically loses to something like, I don't know, like Vanity's Emptiness. Oh, and things that banishes like Dark Law, Macrocosmos, Banisher of Light, and such. And obviously it loses to Naturia Beast because you have to activate the Pendulum monsters as spell cards for this, well, any Pendulum deck to work. So yeah, without further ado, let's get to the deck profile. So for our first set of cards, we're on the 3 Lancephorhynchus. I think that's how it's pronounced. Anyways, pretty nice vanilla card, 2500 attack, scale 7 and level 6. Basically, this is the card that you usually search with Summoner's Art since you run fewer scale 7 pendulum monsters than scale 2 or 3s. It also has the pendulum effect that your vanilla monsters can inflict piercing damage to your opponent. So it's pretty nice, helps you with the OTKs, and definitely one of the better targets for Summoner's Art, basically. So up next, we have another set of level 6. This is the 2 Dragonhorn Hunters. So he has 2300 attack, level 6, and a scale 3. He has a pretty decent pendulum effect, which is that all your vanilla monsters get 200 attack. I mean, all vanilla monsters on the field get 200 attack actually, so that includes your opponent as well. And you take no battle damage from battles involving your vanilla monsters. So moving on to the level 5s, we start off with 2 Mandragons. So he's a level 5 for 2500 attack, which is pretty decent, but he doesn't come with any special pendulum effects, so you rarely ever put him in the pendulum zone unless you really need to, or you plan to destroy it using Echo Oscillation later on. So next up, we also run a set of 2 of these creepy machine thing called the Foucault's Cannon. This thing's also a level 5 and has 2200 attack. It does come with a pretty sweet pendulum effect, so during the end phase that this card is activated, you can target 1 face-up spell or trap card on the field and destroy it. I run 2 of him because there seems to be a lot of Qliphorts running around on DevPro recently, so yeah, you just want that extra MST to destroy your opponent's scout as soon as possible. So moving on to the level 4, we start off with a set of the 3 Flash Knights. So the Flash Knights are just there so you can normal summon them as a 1800 attack body if you can't complete your scale, or you can set them on the scale as scale 7. So I just run 3 of this guy because you just need more scale 7 in the deck for the scales to balance out. And then of course next we have a set of our 3 main guys, the Dragoons of Draconia. So his pendulum effect is that whenever your vanilla monster runs over your opponent's monster in battle, you can add 1 level 4 or higher normal monster from your deck to your hand. Level 4 or higher just means any pendulum cards that you run in this deck, because there is no level that is lower than level 4. So basically, early on in the game, this guy almost always has a priority on your pendulum zone as a scale 2, as opposed to any other scale 2 or 3s that you might have in your hand. But once you have built enough advantage using this card, feel free to destroy it using Echo Oscillation to replace it with something like Dragonhorn Hunter if it helps you finish off the game. So yeah, really great cards, and I would not recommend you to run any less than 3. And lastly, for our vanilla monsters, we run the 2 Doradragons. So here's another set of skill 7s, but despite the fact that I actually do want to run more skill 7s in the deck, I only run 2 Doradragons because he has 500 attack and 2100 defense. Personally, I don't really like to run cards that is only defensive like Doradragon, because 500 attack really can't run over anything. But another reason why he's also there is because you can make him into Naturia Beast using one of the level 1 tuners. Naturia Beast is just a card that stops most of the decks in the meta right now, like Necros and Shaddollche. So yeah, it's really great to have it as an option, and that's why I still run 2 despite the fact that he can't do anything but, you know, be a fatty. So then for the 1 copies of, we run 1 Dragon Dowser. So whenever this card is destroyed by your opponent's card, either by battle or card effect, you can special summon 1 Earth Pendulum monster from your deck in defense position, but destroy it during the end of the turn. So basically this guy searches out Mandragon most of the time, or you could also search out Doradragon if you need to. So yeah, that totals up to 4 targets in the deck, so I run 1 of him just as a filler for the deck, since you can run into bad hand sometimes. And it's just nice to have something that you can just set and pass the turn. So then we also have 1 Snyffus. If I could run 2 glow bulbs, I would, but since I can't, I just run 1 Snyffus as a substitute for a level 1 tuner. Snyffus does have a pretty nifty effect, but since it's really conditional and most of the time it's irrelevant in the game, I just use him as a level 1 tuner and that's it. It's just for a one-time use. But of course we have the real glow up bulb, a really fantastic card. You can use him as a level 1 tuner basically twice, since you can revive him from the grave. And moving on to spells, we have 1 Monster Gate. It's just there to speed up the deck, because whatever you tribute goes to the extra deck anyway. And then we have 3 Upstart Goblins, because we want to run into Echo Oscillations as soon as possible. The fact that you're giving your opponent life points is almost irrelevant, since if you can Pendulum Summon 5 monsters from your extra deck anyway, you can deal well over 10,000 damage in a single turn. To speed up the deck even more, we run 3 Summoner's Art, just so you can search out whatever scale you want. If you usually you want the Lancephorhynchus for scale 7, or you can just search out the others if you want scale 2 or 3s. And then of course we have our non-banned version of the Pot of Avarice, the Pot of Riches. Similar effects, it lets you recycle 3 Pendulum monsters from your extra deck or graveyard into your deck, and you get to draw 2 cards. You can only use this card once per turn, and this turn you cannot special summon except by Pendulum Summon. I find that running more than 1 of this card kind of clogs in the deck, because I rarely ever need to recycle spare Pendulum monsters from the extra deck, and the Pendulum monsters rarely ever hit the graveyard anyway. And if it does, it's either by Solemn Warning, by at that point I'm already losing, or if I use them as XC materials and I'm already winning. So for me, since it doesn't really change of the flow of the game much, I just use this as more of a filler card, and I might even consider replacing it once I find a better alternative. And of course we have the 3 MSTs, because you don't want stupid things like Solemn Warning, Bottomless, or Vanities to ruin your day. And then following that we have the 2 Tankies, because you want to run into your Dragoons of Draconia as early as possible and build up that card advantage. And for our last spell we have 1 Snatch Steal, because it's Snatch Steal, and because almost 100% of the time it does help you with the OTK, so why the heck not. So moving on to our traps, we have our 1 Torrential Tribute. Although there are lots of floaters in this meta, I still think it's a really good card for this deck, because it does clear your opponent's field for you to OTK on your turn, and it can also save your monsters from being banished by Bottomless Trap Hole. So then we have our three main trap cards, the 3 Echo Oscillations. Its effect is that you can target one card in your Pendulum Zone, destroy it, and draw one card. You can only use this effect of Echo Oscillations once per turn. So basically, you can still use this both in your opponent and your own turn to effectively draw 2 cards by the time it's your own turn again. So the main strategy with this deck is to amass a massive army of Pendulum monsters in your extra deck, complete your scale, go for a big Pendulum Summon, and proceed to OTK your opponent. So it's really important to run into this card as soon as possible, or you'll have a hard time building up your advantage basically. So for our final 2 cards, we run the 2 Tyrant's Throws. So this card is basically one of your winning conditions if your opponent doesn't have MST. You can activate this by tributing 2 vanilla monsters except tokens, and neither player can normal or special summon effect monsters. So pretty much this card is like the more broken version of Vanity's Emptiness, since your opponent can't even normal summon, so they can only set basically. And you get free reign over whatever you summon since you mainly run vanilla cards and not effect monsters. So yeah, really good. If your opponent doesn't have MST, it's basically game over. So finishing off our main deck, we move on to the extra deck, and starting off we have the 1 Dark Strike Fighter. So I know he's not as good as he used to be, but since whatever you tribute gets sent to the extra deck, you can keep reusing his effect every turn, and you can basically burn your opponent to death if they're trying to stall you out. And 2600 attack is actually pretty decent as well. It gets over a lot of things, and yeah, really nice option for a synchro. So moving on, we have one of the 2 non-TCG cards, the Qliphorts Synchro Dragon. In my opinion, this is one of the best level 7 synchro monsters to have ever been released. So his effect makes it basically he can't be targeted by monster effects, and if your opponent tries to, he can negate it and destroy it, and whatever he destroys, he gains that much attack. So yeah, really good. And the same goes for the next level 7 synchro monster. This is one of the best as well that hasn't been released in the TCG yet. So basically, when he's summoned, you get to bounce a special summon monster from the your opponent's side of the field, and whenever they try to summon a level 5 or higher monster to the side of the field, you also get to bounce back another card from their field. So yeah, really good. You can also stun your opponent if your opponent plays like a synchro based deck. So then we also have 1 Naturia Barkion, just because you can make him with Mandragon and one of the level 1 tuners. But the main level 6 synchro that you'll be going into is the Metaphys Horus. So this card, whenever this card is synchro summoned, you can activate an effect based on what type of monster you use as synchro material. And if you use a pendulum monster, your opponent gets to choose 1 monster from their side of the field and give control of it to you, except it cannot attack the turn that you activated this effect. So yeah, really insane card. It's like creature swap, except you don't have to give up your own monster. And I just run 2 of these because sometimes you want it to go into the second one. And then moving on, we have 1 Amades, Keeper of the Boundaries. Well, you do run a lot of level 4 monsters, so I thought Amades is just a good level, generic level 5. So, and he was also pretty good since floaters seems to be the meta nowadays. And then we have 1 Naturia Beast, because you do run 2 Doradragons and all your tuners are earth monsters anyway. As mentioned before, Naturia Beast can stop a lot of the meta decks like Heroes, Necros, and Shaddollche. So he's just there as a really nice option to go into if you ever run into those decks. So moving on to our XCs, we have our Gaia Dragon, the Thunder Charger. If you overlay this on top of Volcasaurus, you can still attack after using his effect, and on top of that, he also deals piercing damage, so he's pretty much the dream card for this OTK deck. So then we have a big finisher card, the number 89, Beyond the Hope. Turning all of your monsters' attack to 0, this card is basically what makes your OTK deck so strong and so consistent. And then we have our final rank 6, our Constella Ptolemy M7. You can use this card to clear, or you can use this card to recycle. It's just really versatile and really good to have as an option. And then we have our only rank 5, the best rank 5 in the game, number 61, Volcasaurus. This card destroys and burn your opponent with fires from hell itself, and you can even overlay into Thunder Charger to attack directly for a total of massive damage, and really good card to have in your OTK deck. So starting off our rank 4, we have our Dark Rebellion XE Dragon. When the deck is all about OTKs and damage, this card is another really great card because it siphons a monster attack into its own, and you can basically deal at least 2500 worth of damage if you attack the monster it siphoned. So then finally we have number 101 Silent Honor Arc and Castle the Skyblaster Musketeer. They're just there as an easy removal, and they can also do some damage if you manage to clear the board. And that finishes off our actual deck, but as always, I do have some suggestions if you want to customize your own deck. So first, you can replace the Monster Gate with another Dragon Dowser. I just find Dragon Dowser to be a nice filler, and Monster Gate is a bit of a wild card since you don't know what you're getting. And adding another Dragon Dowser wouldn't be a problem since you do have 4 targets in the deck anyway. And in place of the Tyrant's Rose, you can also run enemy controllers. So basically this card is a bit faster than Tyrant's Rose if you just want to use it as an escape for Bottomless Trap Hole, but you can only save one monster obviously. But it does help you with OTK a bit more. Tyrant's Rose just basically prevents your opponent from playing, whereas enemy controls actually helps you with the OTK. So if you want to play a more OTK central deck, you take out the Tyrant's Rose and put in this card instead. Yeah, unlike Tyrant's Rose though, this card isn't susceptible to MST, so that's also another advantage. But otherwise, you can also replace Tyrant's Rose with Tyrant's Temper, or maybe you can even replace MST, the MSTs with Tyrant's Temper. Basically, you tribute one monster, and as long as this card stays face up on the field, all your monsters are unaffected by other trap cards. So it's similar to Royal Decree in terms of function, since you just want your monster to be safe from trap cards. But unlike Royal Decree, of course, this card lets you play your own trap cards, which you need to because Echo Oscillation is your main card. So yeah, it's really good as well. And that's all for my suggestions. If you like my video, I would appreciate it if you could give me a big thumbs up. Otherwise, if you think I could still improve the deck somehow, please leave your feedback in the comment sections below, and I would definitely read it and use it to better myself as a duelist. Now that the deck profile is finally over, it's time to duel!